Hey guys, welcome to episode 58 of the Austin Downbeat. I'm Kat, your host. I'm so glad you're joining me today. I have a great guest for you. But first, let's do what we do. And here are just some of the people that are playing this week in Austin, Texas, June 13th through the 19th. Here we go. Show alum Courtney Santana is going to be at Sea Boys on the 13th, as well as Van Jackson at the Continental Club. On the 14th, you have Bonnie Whitmore at Sagebrush, Kelly McWee at Sea Boys. On the 16th, get your pencil out and write these down. There's a bunch. Brandon Pattier, show alum, is at Vista Brewing. Eric Betancourt is at the Hotel Viata. Ali Holder is at the Cactus Cafe. Wendy Kalana is at Easy Tiger. And Matt Hubbard is at the Austin Beer Garden. So many to choose, and those are all on the 16th. On the 17th, if you have not been to a Peggy's porch party, get your booty out there. It is the coolest vibe. Peggy is amazing and Grace is amazing. So Grace Pettis is at the Peggy's Porch Party on June 17th. I think there are still some tickets left. So if you've been on the fence or you know what I'm talking about, get out there. Carrie Hudson is at Saxon Pub on the 17th, and Ginger Lee is at Captain Quackenbush's Coffee House. On the 18th, you have Scott Strickland at Infamous Brewing. And on the 19th, you have your regular, well, every week we have a residency. So Monday Night Supper Club at El Mercado South, but this time, I have it up on this screen. You have Ben Jones, Barbara Nesbitt, Miles Zuniga, Harmony Kelly, Johnny Gowdy, and Darren Murphy. And they are all they're kind of hijacking the Monday Night Supper Club to celebrate Paul McCartney's birthday. And I would assume do a lot of Paul McCartney songs. But those six guys and gals, they're going to kill it. So that's going to be really fun. So that's Monday the 19th. You also have Brian Wolf. He plays at the Driscoll Hotel every Monday night. And then you have Bob Schneider at Saxon Pub doing his thing for Lonely Land at Saxon Pub on Monday night. So there you go. That's a lot for you. So you should have enough to choose from. Okay, let's get down to it. I'm not going to take up a ton of time. My guest today is Evan Michael Crowley, and he is the lead singer and brain behind the wonderful band called St. Loretto. I stumbled upon this thanks to the internet and Instagram and all that. And he has one song in particular called Feel It. I can't get it out of my head. It's such an earworm and it's perfect for the summer. It's just a great jam. The album is called Blooming. It came out on May 12th in old school album style, released the whole thing together because it is very dynamic. It is a collection. It is very representative of what he's trying to get across and the journey that sort of happens through the album. He's so good, you guys, and he's so sweet, and he has such a great head on his shoulders. So talented, not only as a musician, but as a videographer and a photographer. Check out his Instagram. I don't have it on me at the moment, but I think it's just Evan Michael Crowley, maybe. But definitely follow him. I'll have that all on my social media, but check him out, follow him, listen to the album. Again, it's called Blooming. St. Loretto is the name of his band. He's so good, you guys. Originally from Oklahoma City. Thankfully, he landed here in Austin, and I'm so happy to get a chance to talk to him. And without further ado, here is Evan Crowley from St. Loretto. All right, here we go. Evan, so nice to see you. Evan Crowley of St. Loretto, which I'm a big fan of and I've been watching. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Kat. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here.
I know, it's so fun. I love and hate, but in this case, I love social media and the internet because I get to discover all kinds of people and especially people here in Austin. And you are one of them that I feel like I sort of stumbled upon. And
Yeah.
and then and then I listen to your music and I'm like, wow, This is good. This is
Oh, thank
really
you so
good.
much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm still pretty relatively unknown in Austin. So, um, it is kind of a common thing where I'll run into people and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know you're here, based out of here." So it's pretty fun to get to like make those kinds of connections for sure. But yeah, I love how it's kind of just been a stumbling around and we kind of met each other and then, next thing we know, we are today.
I know, I know. It can be that easy, you know? I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
the ease
totally.
of that. It's like, come on, let's just make it happen. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about, because I know you're not from here, you're from Oklahoma City,
Yeah, yeah.
is that right? Were you born there and kind of grew up there your whole life?
No, so I was actually born in Texas, but my dad, worked in the hotel industry when I was younger, and like we moved around a fair amount. But I kind of like grew up in Portland, Oregon, actually,
Oh,
in like the '90s, and then moved to Oklahoma like right around 2000, and I stayed there up until September of 2017. And that's when I moved to Austin. So I've been here since the fall of 2017. Still go back quite a bit. Oklahoma is kind of always going to be like a home to me.
mhm,
Definitely like friends with a lot of folks from there, and a lot of the bands from there, and I still kind of follow and keep up with the music scene quite a bit from there. But just kind of like had always wanted to live in a bit bigger of a music town, and so Austin kind of was like a good fit. I played South by Southwest for quite a few years, each year, and always loved coming down here for that and just playing shows. We played a lot in like Denton and Dallas, and then we'd kind of come down here in Houston quite a bit in a band I was in before this one.
mhm.
And it just sort of was like a good place. Matt Noveski from Blue October was actually one of the first people that I met that was sort of like from here. And we opened up for them, I think like two or three times in Oklahoma when they came through, and
That's
he was always like, dude, you got to come hang out in Austin sometime. And so I did and kind of fell in love with it. And yeah, it's just been kind of hitting the ground running and doing a lot of different creative aspects of the music industry here. I have collaborated with a lot of artists, like done a lot of music video work with other artists, and produced and engineered and managed other artists down here. And it's like I feel like I've almost like played less in my own music project. I've done all these other things, but it's just because there's so much exciting stuff going on here, and so it's been really fun to get to be a part of it in other ways than just playing my own music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you touched on so many things that I want to kind of drill a little bit deeper in, because not
Sure.
only was I listening to your music, I had it on last night while I was making dinner, and
Oh, nice. Yeah.
even my teenage daughter was like, "Ooh, I like this one."
That's awesome.
So you
Yeah.
scored some points from a 13-year-old.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she was digging it. Um, but then your photography is so amazing,
Oh, thank
like
you.
insane, insane. And then your videography. So we're going to talk about each of those, because I think each of them kind
Sure.
of
Yeah.
deserves some time spent. But mostly, and at the kind of top, you have a new album that just came out not even a month ago.
Yeah.
So it's a month old for us, and that's called Blooming. And
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about that? It's really good.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a long one.
Yeah.
I think it's like 16
12.
tracks
Oh yeah,
total.
16. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like 14 that are like full songs with like a couple of small little interlude
Mm-hmm.
deals. But yeah, I mean, it took a really long time to make that record, because I kind of started it out of my last record, which is called Passages. And then like the pandemic hit, and you've had a lot of musicians on. I was listening to a few episodes of your show where I think like everybody was so, obviously affected by that. and
Every
and
single one. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So I kind of had some songs, but I was like, oh God, now like what am I gonna do to just get through this? So that's when I got into video. But the album just sort of kept sort of happening in the background, and it was just something that I was like constantly sort of working on all the time. But it's so expensive to work on those things, and I really value the time of the people that I work with, so I always wanted to make sure they got paid well to do what, to work with me, and I wanted to work with the people that were really important to me. And so I feel like it kind of needed a lot of time to
Mhm.
do what I really wanted to do for it. I think I probably could have put it together faster, but it just didn't. It just needed time to grow, and it needed the right people, and it kind of needed um, a lot more to it than I think you could just sort of like lightning in a bottle pack and put into it. And it this just wasn't that kind of a record. Like I the I think like each record for me, it's like I'm trying to dig deeper into who I am and like figure out more about myself and my life experiences and process things. And so sometimes that can happen fast, sometimes that happens a little bit slower. And I think for this record, it kind of took like 4 years to really to do that. And then to take the sketches of ideas that I had and turn them into something bigger. So um it was a huge undertaking, but I'm incredibly proud of the work that we put into it. And I had a lot more people, like a lot more hands on deck with this record than I'd had in the past. I mean, my first two records were really just sort of me. And then occasionally my sort of longtime collaborator, Clayton Straub, who plays drums for me in this band. We also have a couple of side projects that we play in as well together. But we've been playing music since we were like 15 years old in Oklahoma. So
Mhm.
to have him all over this record. I pulled Steve Shilton, who's like he's filled in for Blue October a few times. I think he's actually playing with them right now, but he's James Eha from Smashing Pumpkins guitar player. He's filled in for the Strokes a few times. And he wrote some guitar on one of the tracks and just absolutely slayed it. But it's just sort of like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I could get emotional thinking about all the hands that went into this. It's just like pretty insane, all the effort and work that went into it.
Mhm.
So I'm just really grateful for the team I had. I mean, Taylor Webb, Nick Colbert, and Alec Jazdowski. I think I'm pronouncing his name right, hopefully. But he plays bass for me live a lot down here. And he played bass on the record. And it was really amazing to watch the songs like really come to life in a way that I think in past records it was sort of just me like, okay, I think I can get the bass
Mhm.
guitar going for this track, but it was like really this thing where I had this vision to just kind of get it started and I let them run with it and it just became something so amazing that I could have never really planned on.
One of the things that I noticed about, and I listened to Passages and I listened to Blooming, and I hear a difference, but I also feel a difference too.
Yeah, yeah,
Not nothing good or bad, just different. I mean, and that's I think true for most artists, right?
sure.
Each album is always going to be a little bit different because you're bringing in a unique set of, almost fingerprints each time you record. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I love so I'm really big on like choices, and
Mm,
like in any moment or any verse or any chorus or whatever, you have lots of choices. And
hmm.
not everybody always takes advantage of those choices. Maybe it's not as obvious, or maybe it's just not. But I love that you come across as someone that uses a lot of your options, meaning you come
Yeah.
across as very dynamic in the sense that
Oh, thank
like
you.
your lyrical melody will like go up and change and come in, like you travel when you
Oh,
sing,
thank you.
and
Yeah.
it's so refreshing. I want you to know that that translates and comes across.
Oh, thank
Maybe not for
you.
everyone, but for me, I really listen to that,
Sure.
and it makes it interesting. It makes me listen even deeper to than what you're saying,
Oh, I
right?
appreciate
Like the
it. Yeah.
car, that's the vehicle to deliver the lyric for me in my brain.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Is that a conscious effort, or is that just a natural thing that you do when you're writing, where, that's just how you write? Or do you think about that? Because I'm always curious. Some people are real straightforward, and that's great. But you
Yeah.
seem to really kind of play and travel. And I'm interested
Yeah.
in that.
Well, I think like that's a pretty common thing for me. I mean, if you look at the record, it kind of doesn't just stick to like one genre. It doesn't really stick to like there's I guess some themes a little bit, but I feel like kind of what you're mentioning, I guess first off with like the sort of tonal change between records. I feel like when I wrote Passages, I was just kind of in like a really dark place in my life, and it was a lot more of like a sad place, I think, than it was with this record. It was like the pandemic was going on and there were so many things to be frustrated about, so many things that were just like really challenging me. And I think there was like this sort of um this really like powerful energy that like was guiding this record, and I wanted it to feel almost as if like the wheels could fall off at any time, because it's just this so much energy happening in the
Mm,
songs. And it's like there was like times where I would cut a guitar solo and I was like, I got to play this over and over and over again, to the point where my fingers were just like
yeah.
bleeding or in pain or something. But it was like the only way to get the feeling right was to get the feeling right. And it was just so important to me to make sure that that happened. And I think as far as like the choices go, I mean, yeah, I think I obsess over those a lot when I'm making the song, because it, like you're saying, the delivery is so important. The like how a song hits you is so important. And if you can't disarm somebody that way, how could you expect them to like go look at what the lyrics are? How could you expect them to like look up your concert dates or something like that? And I think something that's really hard to capture for bands, you know, you see a band live a lot of times and it's like, oh my God, this band is so good. And you go listen to the record and it's a very different thing.
Mhm.
But for me on the record, I felt like I was missing the live thing, that like the first two records, it was just sort of me on my computer trying to make the songs make, you know, sense. Um, but it never really sounded the way it did live. Whereas I feel like this record really has that emotion, that raw emotion behind it. And like there's flubs and things that just like you get live, and it was like, no, that sounds cool, keep it. But it
Yeah.
only came from like running the parts. It was like, how many times can we do this guitar solo and still have enough time that we are going to be able to track vocals later today or whatever it is. So there was a lot of attention to detail in a way that it wasn't like, how do we get it perfect, but it was like, how do we get the vibe to really come across in a way that when somebody's listening to the song, they're just like, oh my God, like you can feel the pick digging into the guitar, you can feel the way that the drums are about to just explode, or whatever it is. And so all of that was super important for sure. I think that's like definitely, you know, if there's one thing that I feel like people have kind of mentioned listening to this record as opposed to the others, it's just the feeling. It
Mhm.
just hits you harder, I think, than the previous two did. But I mean, having so much of it done live rather than just me sort of at a keyboard or with my guitar and then me trying to do the drums and the
Right.
bass and all that stuff. But another reason why it took so long is because it just had to be right before I put it out. So,
Yeah. And do you feel like it was all worth it?
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have any, you know, ideas that my music will ever be hugely popular or anything like that. I could just hope that by the time that I die, I've got a few records that I'm just really proud of. And like this, I feel like every record gets better. And that's kind of all I can hope for, is just like, how do I dig deeper in myself, write better songs, get better, you know, tighter with the group of people that I'm working with. And, you know, I try really hard to keep the same core people working on things, because I feel like we all kind of grow together and we work on songs and just it gets better and better. And you know, I think growing those relationships really shows up. And so Taylor Webb, who I worked with a little bit on my last record, you know, I worked with him a ton on this record, but he's somebody who I absolutely adore, both as a human and also just as like a producer, engineer. He's just got such a great ear for like what matters to pay time into. I mean, he's just a great engineer overall, but I think all of us musicians, it's like we really want to trust the people that we're working with. And Taylor's just one
Yeah.
of those guys who does a killer job of that. And Nick, who I co-wrote a few songs with, Nick Colbert, and he produced some of the record as well. He's kind of like a tell it like it is person. So it's like when I come to him with an idea and he doesn't like it, he'll be like, that's awful. Like immediately. And I think but we, you know, we love each other. It's like
Yeah.
you tell me that up and down every day, and I just keep coming back with more ideas, like, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And so it's a really great team, and I think it really shows in the record for sure.
Do you define that as success? I mean, what is it? Because one of the things we talk about a lot here is the reality of this business, and the art intersecting with the business part of it. And it's kind of the duality of that. And how does one person who, like you, is just bursting with not only talent, but something to really offer all of us, right? Like that's what you're doing. That's what you're spending your life doing. How then do you define success, or what feels successful to you when you're 95 looking back? What is that for you? Is it a, you know, gold records and millions of fans, or is it that you did good work and had really good relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think, some days it's different. Like, there's just some days where just like getting, but I mean, I think for me, it's like, yeah, if I can like look at the long haul, what does that look like? And I've been making music uh, at least somewhat professionally since I've been 15, or since I was 15 years old. And like, I was in a band that was signed to a subsidiary of Sony and did a lot of touring when I was like 18 years old. And I played all different kinds of genres of music and played in venues big and small. And like, um, I think, and they might have talked about it on the show before, but it's like, much like in life, like your trajectory as a musician, it doesn't always just like the harder you work, the bigger the shows are. Like, there's been times where, I've played in front of thousands of people and then come and played a show in front of 20. And I think like when you judge success by the amount of like ears you're reaching, it can be really complicated to sort of take that and like have it fuel you, because I think it's very defeating to kind of feel like, okay, well, this day it was this good and this day, so for me, I kind of never really measured it like that, because of it's just sort of always been up and down. And to me, it's never really been about like other people, like outside validation. I would consider myself somebody who makes music because I want to help other people, and I would love if, my music was reaching people and it on a spiritual level or on a just whatever level, it's like it helps them get through something or something like that. But like, I feel kind of arrogant to expect that that would be the case. It's like maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. But for me, like, I know it helps me. I know that writing songs, I know that recording songs and playing and like really living in the emotion of those songs, like it helps me through so many things. And I think everybody should have an outlet like that. But sort of like at the end of the day, if I can sustain that and keep doing it, and keep putting out music, to the degree that I want, in terms of like, can I dig inside of myself? Can I pull these things out and continue to write meaningful music in my own way? Like that would be the win for me. And
Mm,
then if it reaches other people, that's great.
mm,
If I get to play shows, that's awesome. But I just feel like, um, you know, I do have a fan base to some degree, and it's like weird for me to think of it that way, but I do have people that really care, and I think like
mm,
that is really encouraging at times. But I
mm,
just really don't want to get caught up in like numbers and analytics and things like that, because I feel like it's just so emotionally disastrous for artists, because there's so much more that goes into that, that I think a lot of people don't really account for sometimes. It's just like,
mm.
oh, I'm not good enough. And it's like, oh, it's not really the case. I think a lot of times it has to do with a lot more. And there's just everybody's bombarded with so much. So to
Yeah.
expect that, your music gets out there to so many people, I mean, more power to everybody who's working on that. But I just think for me, that's not really the goal. The goal is to continue to be able to write music and record it and bring my friends and people that I really admire in on the projects I'm working on and get that out.
Yeah.
And then like hopefully process a few things for myself as well. But
I love that. Well, you are it feels like you're lined up with what really matters. It's good for people to hear that. I'm happy to hear that, because you're right. It is so easy. We are bombarded, and it's it's tough. And I think sometimes people just need a reminder, and
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, to just like, if it, like, same for me doing the show. If it stops being fun, stop doing
Yeah,
it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I
totally.
genuinely have such a good time talking to people like yourself, and that's enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if I was doing this till I was 99.
Yeah, you should.
Wouldn't that be so cute for like a little old lady to be
It
interviewed?
would, yeah.
I'm gonna keep it going.
I saw your show at Antone's last week. That'd be great.
I'll get like preferential treatment. I'll be able to like put a chair in the front.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be pretty sweet. I'll hang on then.
Yeah, you definitely should.
Let's talk a little bit about how you got into video and photography. Again, I love photography. I used to have my own photography business and do that for myself. Um, so I'm always really like, every time I notice good photos, they
Oh,
kind of
thank you.
stick for me. So yeah, some of your South by stuff and the black and white and just the light, obviously light is just like
Oh, yeah.
95% photography. So talk a little bit about that. How long have you been doing that? And you said during the pandemic, is that when you kind of got involved with, is light stream media? Is that who you're?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Lightstream Media is,
they're
kind of
fantastic.
my main gig. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so, I mean, I've loved photography since I was pretty young. Like, I think my mom had like a Nikon film camera that she gave me when I was in high school. And then I mean actually it probably was like seventh grade maybe. And so I would take photos with that. At the time there was like a grocery store that we would take the photos to because I guess there was probably Walgreens and all that, but I was just like convenient. And I
Mhm.
guess they had like a photo thing that we would take it to. And then I got into journalism in high school. So I took some photos for like the newspaper. And I think that's where I kind of got into black and white because that was all it was. Like the newspaper was just black and white. And
Yeah.
so something about that just kind of stuck with me. And I continue doing photography as sort of like just a fun thing. And I never really like wanted to get into doing it as like a career, I guess. But then during the pandemic, when everything kind of dried up for music, like this probably sounds horrible to say, but it was like I was producing music and working out of Orb recording studios in South Austin with Matt Nevesky was there. But the pandemic kind of like really put a ripple, in music and what was going on in terms of like what projects were available. Like a lot of people were recording, but they didn't have tour budgets, so they didn't have money to go into the studio. So everyone was just kind of trying to do stuff cheap, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. And people, I remember, I think Clayton and I were at Swan Dive one night, and it was like the show had canceled and it was just Sean who runs sound up there, like just kind of putting on music he liked, and we went up there to hang out, and it felt so eerie, but there was something about it where people were like, yeah, if we just stay inside for 2 weeks this will all go away. And there was something about that I was just like, that's not gonna happen. Like
Mhm.
this is gonna be a while before we can figure things out. So I was really kind of trying to figure out what I was gonna do. And this client of mine came through Orb and they were like, hey, do you know anyone who directs music videos? Like we're kind of out of recording budget, but we like everyone wants video content right now, so we're gonna do that. And I was like, I do that all the time. I direct music videos, like
In
just
my
kind of like,
sleep.
yeah. But I'd been in a lot of them, so I was like, I'm sure I could figure that out. So I asked what their budget was. I think they said like $1,500, and I was like, perfect. So I like went home and like, what camera can you get for $1,500? And I just sort of like hoped that it would work out. And then it was crazy. It was like I did 30 music videos that year. And it was like nobody could afford big shoots, and big shoots had to be really small anyway because you couldn't have like a crew in a room with like everybody. So I
Yeah.
was just like, how do I do um affordable content for musicians that are just like looking for this, that, and the other thing. And so I guess, I was fortunate in that like I had loved photography and kind of had some idea of what, those kinds of things need to be. But I will say, film and cinema, whatever you want to look at it, movies, however you want to call that, it's like it's got all of its own thing. And so I was never so arrogant to think that I would be great at it, but I was like, maybe I can do cheap, music videos for people who are looking for that. And so I kind of got pretty good at, what can I do with the camera, and then like what can I pull out of the trash to like build a spaceship interior for a music video, or like what how can we build a stage out of nothing, and just sort of get really creative. And I think
Love that.
pandemic kind of did that for a lot of people. It was like horrible, but it was also for a lot of us who were kind of trying to figure things out. It really pushed us to get creative with like shoestring budgets and do things that we
Right.
never would have probably thought we could do before. So that's kind of how I got into video work. And then with photography, I've been really protective of that, still being something that's not really like a revenue generator for me. It's like,
Yeah.
um, I want to take pictures of my friends and things I'm interested in, and stuff that I like to do in my own style. And I don't really want to like get into people hiring me to shoot photos for things in a way that they want, because it's just, and I'll do that with video work because I'm just not as, I mean, I'm passionate about it because it's creative and it's interesting and I love collaborating with people. But for that, I would love nothing more than to like latch onto the artist vibe and like make a video that makes sense for that. But with photography, it's like something about the still frame and how much it like it says, I mean, what, a picture's worth 1,000 words or something like that. And so for me, it's like I want all of those 1,000 words to be my words. And
Mhm.
it might be the subject and I'm communicating an idea, but I just have tried really hard to only take projects that I like really, really want for that, and be really selective, because um I just don't want to like lose my love for photography as like something that I'm passionate about. So
I totally get it. When I first started, I've been taking pictures since I was a little kid too. And in fact, I still have them. I just put all my photos into actual photo albums and have
oh, that's so
out
fun. Yeah.
like old school. And I came across I when I was probably like 7 or 8, I just kind of documented our house and like
Oh
our
yeah, yeah.
flowers, and this is what our house looks like, and this is my room, and this is our boat. And
Yeah,
um but when I first decided to kind of have a business, I would tell my clients, I can't talk about money.
yeah,
We have to pretend like I'm just doing this for fun.
yeah,
I'm gonna pretend like you're not paying me, like, because it can't be about money for me.
yeah,
It always would get too into my head, and it would pull me out of my love. And so I identify with what you're saying totally, because there is something so powerful for me in photographs. So they're very powerful for me.
yeah,
Um, and it just means a lot to me. And so, yeah, I totally feel you on that. Like, I had to tweak it and kind of find my own way to work within those bounds, as far as making money at it. But yeah, you keep
yeah.
that special because you should. You
Yeah,
know?
totally. Well, I think anything you love, as soon as you start trying to monetize it, it's
Oh,
almost like that's one reason why video has been great, because like I feel like it's creative, it's interesting. But if somebody comes to me and they're like, here's what I want to do, and I'm like, that's a crazy idea, but sure, let's do it.
okay.
Like, but it's just not really like, you know, something that at the end of the day, if somebody critiques, my video work, like I still care about it and want to do a great job. But like, to me, it's the passion that I have for that is like making something that the client's really into and proud of and is
Yeah,
an extension of their work. So it's very easy for me to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to take my ego out of this or whatever it is. But I
right.
think that photography and even music to a certain degree, it's like I've worked on a lot of projects over the years, and I definitely get more joy when it's something where it's like we're really collaborating, and it's like they want me for the thing that I do, rather than sort of like trying to pull me into this equation where they're like, okay, now play guitar like this one guy, or sing like this one guy, or do this other
Right.
thing. Then it's kind of like you have to detach yourself from the creative side a bit, or manage your expectations in terms of like what you're going to get out of
Yeah.
for, and you definitely don't want to be in a situation where you're like letting it spoil your interest in the project or something like that. So I think anybody in the creative industry, it's like you kind of have to check in with yourself and do those kinds of things, because I never want to be sitting there writing a song because I feel like I've got to get listens, or I've got to get
Oh,
certain
yeah.
things and those kinds of things. And so my career looks really different from some musicians who, are really good at that and know how to do it. And, even just that's what they kind of do. But I feel like, I write music that's just kind of on the borderline of pop music and alternative and somewhat experimental, I guess.
Mhm.
But for me, at the end of the day, it's like if two people hear it, that's great. But it's just sort of about getting it out there and it being a done thing and moving on and to the next thing,
Yeah, that process of creating is in of itself it.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
that kind of is it, in the fact that like if I write a beautiful poem and I just wrote it, it doesn't matter who sees it. I
Yeah.
got it out, right, and onto the page. It's very similar. I think that that's a really intelligent way to approach your art, and I think that what comes out of that, I think innately, is authenticity, which is so attractive. And so without even really trying, just by being authentic and staying who you are, it is attractive.
Oh,
It
sure.
is,
Thank you.
you know what I mean? So that's what's cool, is like you just be over there doing your thing,
Yeah.
and we can feel that when someone's
Oh, yeah.
doing their thing. And that's what's cool.
And I think it definitely takes away a lot of fear, because yeah, when you're doing music for other people, or to like keep the paycheck coming in and all that, and I have no problem with that at all. A lot of my friends do music in that way, but like, for me, it's just I have nothing to lose. Like I'll just go play a shit whatever show I want and do it however I want, and like there's just the only person that can pull the plug on it really at that point is me. So it's like I'm just gonna go for it and do
Mm.
it how I'm feeling. And I think like that to me offers way more in return for myself than trying to put it in a place where it has to meet certain metrics and do certain things. And so it
Yes.
works out. And I think it's got to be sustainable. So you got to find income streams and things, to make it work for you. And I've kind of had to diversify and do film and some of these other things to keep funding coming in. But at the end of the day, no one's telling me, apart from the people that I pulled into my inner circle, about what I want. Nobody's like, wow, what if we change the hook to this? Or what if we do all this stuff? And it's like, I'm pretty well left alone to, the group and my own devices, and just kind of seeing how things work out. And I think for me, it just feels so good to do it that way. And so, that's not an equation that works for everybody, but I think if you can find a way to balance things where you can continue doing things in the way that you are happy with, like you said, with your show, it's like, as long as it's fun, as long as it's interesting, and it's like giving you some joy in your life, like that's all you could hope for, really, I think. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Amen.
yeah, for sure.
What do you have anything outside of this, like any hobbies or things, secret talents that we would that I'm always so curious, because
Oh, yeah,
we always we see what you give us, but there's other
sure.
stuff. There has to be other stuff there. So what secret talents or hobbies is Evan Crowley like?
I really
Yeah.
like cooking a lot, actually. And I think it's kind of funny. My favorite thing lately is to like it's great when you go to the grocery store and you have like ingredients for things, but what I've been doing lately is sort of like trying to improv like
Yes.
something that would just sort of be impossible to make with the ingredients that you have. But it's like, well, okay, I can substitute this for that and this for
Yeah.
that and those kinds of things, and just sort of like use what I have, which I think I do a lot with music as well. It's like
Mm.
the world, I think like the way the society that we live in, it's like not everybody has abundance to just have everything that they need at all times. But the kind of the way that society works right now is that there is just so much happening all the time, and we're so bombarded and things are so available that like I think sometimes that gets stressful. And so I kind of like to just sort of be like, okay, what do I have in front of me that I can do, and just sort of like get creative with that. And so cooking's been really fun. Um, I photography has definitely been kind of something that I've been getting a lot more into. But I mean, I feel like I really spend a lot of my time, working on music projects. So I feel like I'm a pretty boring person outside. I really love like art history documentary, like BBC art history documentaries lately. So while I'm working on writing or, editing or things like that, I'll kind of turn on YouTube and watch art BBC art history documentaries. But it, kind of ties into the photography and video stuff. It's like all of the like masters were so concerned with light,
Mm.
and how that affects like, the way a painting turns out. And so looking at that as like a foundation for how we compose photos and things like that now, it's like there's a lot that ties into that, and there were people who were paying attention to that way long ago, so that's really fascinating to me. um I've got two cats, and I love to back in Oklahoma City, my friend Rachel has worked for the Humane Society for a long time. So every year we do like a big fundraiser where we get a bunch of music artists to contribute holiday music for this sampler that goes out, that they then sync it with footage of like puppies and kitties playing in front of a fireplace, and then they
Oh,
raise a bunch of money for the Humane Society, and then there's like a show where some of the artists will contribute. So animals, and particularly cats, have been like, I love to raise money to help animal welfare a lot, just because I'm pretty passionate about the fact that there's tons of animals that need adoption, and just it's like, impossible to get them all adopted. But a lot of the centers and people who are trying really hard to protect them and give them good homes and all of that. It's like, I think super important as all of our cities become ultra urbanized, and it's just really hard for animals to find a place in that environment. So but I wouldn't really consider that a talent so much as just like a passion for cute animals. But
oh.
don't really have anything outside of those things, like as far as I'm aware of, that are secret time. Haven't really tried a lot of things, but I just kind of stick to the things I know, I
Well,
guess.
you're young. You're
So,
young. You're young.
oh, thank you.
Lots of time.
Appreciate that.
So what are your plans? You have this beautiful new album.
Well, thank you.
What are your plans? Do we get to see you perform in Austin anytime soon? What's on the horizon there?
Yeah, I'm working on some shows right now. We played a few release shows at Swan Dive. I've yet to play in Oklahoma City for the release, but it's kind of been a weird thing where the way I pictured promoting this record was to kind of do it backwards of a lot of the ways that people are doing things now, where it was really written to be a record. A lot of artists do like singles,
Mhm.
and they'll kind of like slowly put out singles, and then they're like, oh, we have a record. But for me, it was like a record first. And
Yeah.
so just getting the record out as like a home base for everything was kind of the most important piece. And then from here, it's sort of like I'm working on video content for a lot of the songs to kind of extend what makes, kind of like help the songs make sense. And then, getting like the lyric videos and things like that out there. And then I'm working on an idea with a friend. I really want to do like a live capture of one of the show, like one of the songs at a show, like on film, like film
Mhm.
video cameras. So we're
Yeah.
working on kind of getting a budget together to do that. I want to do it like at a venue, like on the floor, and just like screw the stage, just set up on the floor and just do like the most like punk rock way we can do it, where it's really intimate with a wide lens with the camera. So it's like you see the audience there, you see we're like face to face, and like the song just sort of like happens in that way. And I feel like that was kind of like all the DIY punk shows I went to growing up in Oklahoma City. It was like we didn't really have a lot of venues to play at, so it was like this art gallery will let us in this one
Yeah.
Sunday if we just bring all our friends out. And so we'd slap together a PA system from the practice space and lighting that was like shop lights, and it's just like half of everything's broken, but the energy and like the authenticity and just like the feeling of being at those kinds of shows was what I really love. So I've kind of been trying to figure out ways to, and spaces that I could create those types of performances, because I love going to shows, but I would kind of love to get back to that sort of DIY feeling, in your face venue thing, like not in a way, I mean, my music's not that aggressive in punk rock, but I just feel like there is a raw emotion behind a lot of the songs, and to just be
Mhm.
right there face to face with your audience, I think, would be really cool. So been exploring a lot of places and trying to figure out how to make the funding work to kind of put something like that together, and infrastructure to like, how do we get people into a space like that? And everybody, wants to either be able to like drink or hang out or have snacks or something like that. And it's like, how do you do that in a way where it doesn't get shut down by the cops while we're all in our 30s or whatever? It feels a little different to get shut down,
It's a
you
little
know?
different when you're 30. Wait till you're
Yeah,
40.
yeah. When you're 30, so it's like, yeah, when you're 18 it's exciting, but yeah, 30 is a little different. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, definitely working on a lot of that stuff, but it's like I'll be pushing this album for a while. I'm actually about halfway through writing my next record, so I've got about 5 songs for that now too, which is like been kind of crazy. But I just feel like when the record came out, it was just such a relief, and I felt like I wasn't going to know what I was going to do next. And I think I got caught up in the fear of that, but then once it came out, it was like, oh, okay, cool, we're good to go, this is coming out. So I've been able to get back to writing, which is great. But I think this will probably be, a year before I try to put anything else out, and just like really focus on making sure that people get a chance to hear these songs we've worked so hard on.
Yeah, I just to go back, I think that I love that you put it out as an album. I think that's if I were to have to choose between the different ways that people are doing it, I think I would vote for that way because I think
Sure.
the art of the album is kind of gone mostly,
Yeah.
certainly in the way that
Well, it's not a smart idea. It's not smart to put out a record. But I mean,
right.
it's what
I
we
get
all, as artists, I think all of us want to do that. Like, I think we all want to pour ourselves into this bigger project. It's just
yeah.
um, consumerism, the way that it's kind of changed the music industry, for better or worse in some ways, has really impacted the way that the album fits into something that makes sense. And I think everything kind of comes in waves, and I think it'll get back to a place where it makes sense to do that. But up until lately, you know, it costs a lot of money, and it's really hard. And then you put it out, and then everyone's like, okay, cool, here's this big piece of work.
Mhm.
Then you don't have something to follow it up with immediately because you've poured so
You
much time
just
into.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally.
Yeah. Well, I think slowly, and I think, it's moving at glacial pace, but I think there is a really strong undercurrent of people that appreciate an album that not
Sure.
only appreciate it, but know how to appreciate it. And they
Yeah,
understand all of what you just said. Um, I love to listen to someone's album because I know that they worked and intentionally put it together as an album. It's like watching
yeah,
a designer walk 10 outfits down a runway. I
yeah.
want
You
to
don't get
see
the
all 10
context with
outfits.
one outfit. Yeah, you're not. It doesn't make
Exactly.
sense that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to see as much of a 360-degree view of you, Evan,
Hmm.
by listening to what you put out for me to listen to. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
But not everybody approaches it that way.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing I wanted to say about your music before I forget is one of my favorite things is when I'm listening to someone and after listening to a few songs, I consistently see like or I have the thought of like I could see this as like montage over a movie or a TV show. Like you bring up visuals, like your music
Oh
brings
yeah.
up visuals for me. And maybe it's because I'm super visual, but I'm like, this is so great because then my brain from the business side goes like, man, he should get some deals and like put this in a freaking commercial or you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Because the way that you write and like your hooks and your melodies are so freaking catchy. And
Oh, thank you.
and I just feel like, dude, this needs to be in like a TV show or a commercial or a movie. And so I just wanted to say that because not every piece of music does that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's
Well, if
okay.
you're listening and you want to put my music in your commercial, let me know because I would love to do that. But yeah,
I know. I
I
feel
think
like,
that's
yeah,
definitely like you know, for me, like nostalgia is a big piece of like what goes into my music. And I feel like it's
yeah.
my hope is sort of that it feels like enough of something that you've heard before and touches on a place that you've been before in your life, but it's not necessarily like you're not like, oh, that sounds like this band, or oh, that sounds like this thing. Like I've tried to craft a sound of my own that's like
Mhm.
there's like a more rock and roll side, there's like a more electronic side, and there's kind of like a more kind of indie rock side, but like
Mhm.
it swings between those three, but kind of hits on some of the stuff that, you know, I really loved when I was growing up. And but without sort of not being its own thing, you know. But
Yeah.
I definitely think as like from an album standpoint, I mean, for me, it definitely like had to be. I mean, the title track, Blooming, is just literally a culmination of like these last, you know, 4 years and all the things that have happened and like kind of relationships with friends and some of the things that have happened that have been like deeply impactful for me. And that's not something you can just put into a song. Like the song is sort of like the cap of all of that. But it just sort of trickles down through the rest of the record, and it had to be that. I like couldn't have put out singles. Like it just did. It wouldn't have made sense. I think by the time the record was out, it just had to be what it was.
Mhm.
And so you know, it was really important for me to do that, and I think it definitely is like it's like certain songs are a palate cleanser and other songs kind of work in different ways to kind of build the record through what it is. And like I think the first half kind of has a lot more of the like aggression and stuff, and it kind of lets down a little bit and brings it back up towards the end.
Mhm.
But it definitely for me was like encapsulating all the things that I was going through and thinking and feeling, and you know, my friendships and some of the things that had happened. I mean, you know, friends of mine had passed away, and there's like lines in the songs about that, and just how unbelievable a lot of that was. So, you know, it had to be that. And I feel like I would have been doing it a disservice, like despite whatever every like PR marketing person could tell you about putting something out. I mean, literally everybody else has told me like singles, you got to have like the waterfall thing. And I was just like, it can't be that. So I didn't hire any PR, and it probably shows, but it just kind of had to be what it was. So you know, I'm really happy with the way that it all worked out, and I couldn't imagine doing it differently though. So
Well, I love the album and I'm so glad you did it the way that you did. I think that there's something to be said for, but you don't seem like a guy that struggles with listening to your compass. You seem
sure,
really, really clear on which direction you're faced and which direction you need to go. And so I'm
absolutely,
really
yeah,
nice to see that that stayed true in how you put this out. Um, I'm really
yeah.
proud of you and I'm so
Oh, thank you.
excited. And I think you should take as long as you want with this album being out and don't feel the pressure to have to back it up with something new. I feel like it's a beautiful big body of work. And I think there's a lot for you to play with over the next year or two, you
Yeah,
know? Yeah.
totally. I definitely will be like doing alternate versions of songs. Like we're talking about doing like a live acoustic in studio, like instrumental thing with like a string section and some stuff like
Love
that I
that.
think would be really cool.
Yes.
Just to kind of give some of the songs a little bit of a different voice and reimagination. So there will definitely be a lot of stuff like that that we'll be doing as well. So I think it's going to be a pretty dynamic experience in terms of like what's there and how it gets explored. But I just think, like you said, maybe for some people it's more visual what they pull, and some people, and it's like
Yeah.
the way we all learn things in school is so different. So if I just put the music out and I'm just like, here you go, like I feel like there's so many different things that we can do with the record and break it apart. I've actually been working with a couple of friends on like redoing some of the songs in different ways. Like, I've got a friend who's kind of like a pop country guy, and he was like, "Oh, what if we took this song and did it like a pop country version?" And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of fun things I think we're gonna end up doing, and DJ friends who are working on some
Yeah.
remixes of some of the songs and all that. So there's just so
Oh,
much to kind of pull apart with it, and I think it's gonna be really fun to get
yes.
to do that.
Yes. I say more of that.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. Well, Evan, thank
Totally.
you so much for stopping by and
Oh,
hanging
absolutely, Kat.
out.
Thank you so
And
much for having me on.
yeah, I'm such a big fan and supporter. And if you need anything, I'm here for you. And everyone needs to stream his new album, Blooming by Saint Loretto, is the name of the project. And hopefully we'll see you booking some gigs and playing in Austin soon. Be
Yeah,
sure to let me
absolutely.
know and I will shout it from the rooftops, my love.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It's been so lovely. So thanks for stopping by.
Thanks so much.
All right. Well, that does it for another episode of the Austin Downbeat. Thanks to Evan Crowley of St. Loretto. Be sure to pick up his record, Blooming, available now, and we will see you next time. Thanks.